We've just talked about appreciating others and their styles and how to work with them. And in this chapter, we're going to take a look at how that affects conflict, how it affects us working with each other and overcoming some of the keys to conflict. If you look in your handouts, the first handout that you have there are tips on working together. To resolve conflict, of course, one of the key things is how do we work more effectively with each other? So let's look at a couple of these points, and there's 6 points in this particular handout, and talk about them just a little bit. The first one is you can't change an individual's mind with orders, arguments, or threats, as individuals' minds are changed by actions or behaviors they observe in others. And we've talked about that a little bit. You can't change somebody else, but what you can do is you can change yourself. And when you change the way you react and you respond, then that elicits a different reaction and response from other people. So a big point there is people want to change other people. People often tell me, well, if this person would just change and do that, or if they would just do this or that, and I have to respond, you're not going to get them to do that. The way that you get them to make changes is the way you make changes to help them overcome some of the things that they're doing. So, excellent point here. You can't change them, but you can change the way you respond. The second one is cooperative achievement by a group or an individual depends not on everybody necessarily liking one another, rather it depends on everybody respecting one another. And that's a key thing there. You're going to be dealing with people in organizations that you don't particularly like, not necessarily because their behavior style is different, but maybe their overall personality doesn't fit well with you. So what do you do about that? Well, you're going to need to work with them. So how do you do it? One of the things that you do is if you will start looking for what things that they do offer, what are their good traits and characteristics. I ask people, most of us are what we call fault finders. We're always looking for what's wrong with situations. On the other hand, if you start looking for, well, what's right with the situation, especially in dealing with people who are quite different than you are, and people that you may have a tendency to have conflicts with, find out what they do well. Compliment them on those things, and then watch and see what happens, how they can respond. Respect is a real key area, and when you emphasize the things that you like about people, it shows them that respect. Number 3 is there's no limit to what a group of individuals can do, provided the individuals are not preoccupied with who gets the credit or blaming other people for lack of success. So the key there is if we're not looking for making ourselves a star, but we're looking as a team player, then it's very easy to avoid a lot of conflicts. Conflicts come in many cases with 1 or 2 people in the organization or in a team that want to take all the credit. As they do, they just suck all the oxygen out of the room, so to speak, and it creates a lot of conflict. So one of the things that we can do is be sure that we don't get into that blame game. We give people credit for the things that they bring to the table, and we emphasize those areas, not only with respect, but with appreciation. Number 4, it says goals defined by a group consensus process is much more effective and timely than goals that are defined for them. One of the keys is that I've done a lot of goal-setting workshops. And in organizations, most organizations are interested in achieving and setting and accomplishing goals. Most of the time, it's not done well. There's a system and a process for goals and goal setting that works. But if you don't use that system, then it doesn't work well, and people then give up on goals. But one of the things that I found about goals is that we're interested in accomplishing goals if we've had a way and a participation of defining what those goals are. Rather than being told, here's the goal, if we are involved in the decision about, well, what do you think this goal is? What do you think we can accomplish here? How far can we go here? What would be a good goal to establish? Then you have ownership in that particular goal. Once an individual has some ownership in the goal, the chances of them working hard and accomplishing it are much, much greater. We look at number 5. The key to survival long-term for success of any group is its ability to recognize and adapt to internal and external changes. And we've talked a little bit about that. Working harder is not near the solution as it is working smarter. And I think that's what most organizations are doing today. I see organizations that I've talked to and worked with that are looking to how do we get more done with less expense or less resources. And that's a real challenge today. So one of the keys there that we're talking about is, well, how do we work smarter? How do we work together? As we adapt to one another, as we build cohesive teams, we're able to generate that initiative and that imagination and creativity that can accomplish those type of goals. But it only happens in an environment where we don't have that conflict. Number 6 is organizational structure, and how we're set up, if you will, is not so important if we remember that we lead people and we manage things. People want to be led. They're not interested in being managed, but they want a leader. They want somebody that will show them and be an example of the type of role that they're looking for in terms of a leadership role. And I think that's one of the things that happens in our organizations today is we try to manage things, if you will, and we're managing tasks, but we're not focusing on what are the people side of that particular situation. Where do they come in? How do I get them involved? And how do I lead? So it's not so much important as how we're set up and how we're structured, but how we make it happen by being the type of leader that people want to follow. So these are 6 principles that I think are excellent. As you look through those, keep those in mind. Go back and refer to those often. In conflict management, I think you'll be able to see, you'll be able to apply these type of things. Let's move at the next part. We'll take a look at our exercise.